Good morning, everyone. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us this morning on the webinar for Business Voice, Options to Enable Telephony in the Cloud with Microsoft 365. Today we're going to be giving you an overview of the options for telephony within this platform, given the current scenario we find ourselves in with remote working very much likely on the cards for the foreseeable future. What we're aiming to achieve today is to give you a few takeaways, which will give you a few options of modernizing your telephony system. We're running a webinar series, which has 6 events in it. We've already conducted the first one on Microsoft Teams around building effective remote teams. And that recording is available on YouTube. And as part of the follow-up for this event, links will be sent around, which will contain the content for the previous events as well as this event. The subsequent events will also be run at the same time every Tuesday at 10 a.m. with recording enabled, and we'll also hold a Q&A. And the questions and answers will be delivered at the end of the session to try and keep them all concise. For further information on the events, please go to circleit.co.uk/events. So what we're looking to achieve today. As part of the business voice options within Microsoft, this is aimed at organizations between 0 and 300 seats. For enterprise voice telephony, we would encourage you to speak to us separately on this, as there are very different requirements in an enterprise voice solution, which can be delivered via Teams, but typically require third-party plugins or partners to help deliver. We'll also give you a very brief overview of Microsoft Teams and how the platform enables the collaboration and voice all in a single unified communications piece. We'll then look at the licensing scenarios around this, how you can enable the features of telephony and communication, how much does it cost, and also try and give you a warts and all view of what are the limitations of this product set. But we'd also like to encourage any questions and answers during this session, which you can post at any time, and we'll review them at the end of this webinar. So just some very quick introductions. So my name is Mark Alfords. I'm a Cloud Solutions Architect at Circle IT. I've been with the organization for 13 plus years, but head up the Cloud Services division, predominantly focused on Microsoft technologies. And I've been doing that now for the past 3 to 4 years, and have developed a pretty good practice within Circle IT based on this information. And alongside me today, I've also got Hugh Valentine, the CEO of Valto. We've been working with Valto for the past 4 plus years on various cloud projects, and being a cloud native company themselves, they've kind of helped us on this journey to deliver a lot of the projects for some of our customers.
Hi everyone, thank you Mark.
Very briefly about Circle IT, we're a value-added reseller based out of Cardiff. We're 17 years old with 80 or more staff. We're privately owned, debt-free and profitable. And obviously at the moment we are trying to help as much as we can various organizations across the country with their cloud or remote working support options. So we also have a very well-established managed support customer base who we are delivering support for, as well as deliver a vast number of projects above and beyond cloud. We also do server storage, networking, virtualization, as well as managed support. And just very briefly on our relationships, we aren't necessarily verticalized, although we do have a strong presence within education, and then within our private sector clients as well. There are various different sectors within that arena that we play in. So what is the requirement for business voice? What we currently see is the challenges of the current situation we find ourselves in. There are a number of traditional based phone systems still in use. And by traditional phone systems, I'm referring to kind of the topology that's on the right hand side of this diagram, whereby you have a telephone system bolted to a wall or running as a virtual machine within your on-premise infrastructure. which then connects you in a traditional way where you have a phone on your desk, or you have kind of conference units based in different meeting room locations, and you may have some sort of soft phone connectivity. But there's very disparate or disproportionate way that you use those pieces of telephony and how they integrate with your current day-to-day working. And with being remote, access to those systems is also troubling. So, for example, if you've got a telephony number that goes to your current phone system, trying to access that when remotely will either have to be done over a VPN solution, or you would have some other way of accessing that phone system, which essentially means it isn't conducive to a very good user experience, and nor does it tie into the whole unified communications piece. So what we typically see with those types of systems, there's no thought process as to how they incorporate the way of working with what we would class as a modern workplace environment, where you're typically tied into long contracts. You have your lines and minutes, which are typically quite expensive as part of this, and it's painful to set up and manage, particularly for people that are working remotely. So what are the drivers for change? Obviously, we all find ourselves in the current predicament we're in with COVID-19, where we are now confined to home working where possible. So there needs to be a system that enables this collaborative way of working and integration into your other tool sets. Presence management is also a key thing given the way that we're now working. So is somebody in another call, before you want to invoke a telephone call to somebody, you want to kind of know what their presence is, whether they're in a meeting, whether they're away from their desk, whether they're busy doing something else, or even on Do Not Disturb. It's vital these days that you have some sort of presence management to understand what your colleagues are doing and where they're at any given time. And I've mentioned it a few times now, and it's always been a buzzword over the past kind of 5 years, but unified comms. And unified comms in a traditional sense has never really been about integrating it into one application stack. And that one application stack that we'll be talking about today is Microsoft Teams, which has superseded Skype for Business in a business sense, where Skype for Business online will be decommissioned over the next couple of years into Microsoft Teams. So what is business voice in the Microsoft 365 world? Essentially, with Microsoft 365 Business Voice, you will get a phone system and your lines and minutes all bundled in, and it's built for small and medium-sized businesses. So what does that mean? The phone system element of it is what allows you to make and receive calls. So it's cloud hosted within the Microsoft 365 platform, and it's all managed by Microsoft. So in a traditional sense, that phone system element is that device that would be bolted onto the wall within your office or run as a virtual machine somewhere. That is a service that you can now take from Microsoft. The lines and minutes associated with that, then, you have two options. The first option is to take that out directly with Microsoft, and the second is to use your existing lines and minutes plans, or with certain providers, you can have the option of direct routing. So within the Microsoft 365 Business Voice, these two elements are bundled in to a licensing. Should you be an enterprise customer, these all very much work in a similar method, but you would typically look at the telephony, or the top part of the picture on the right-hand side being taken out on a per-user basis, and the PSTN element being delivered outside of this. Now, the benefit of Microsoft 365 Business Voice is that it's available anywhere on any device. So you do enable a true unified communications piece throughout. So the two options for lines and minutes are direct routing and the Microsoft call plans. So Microsoft Direct Routing allows you to utilize your own telecommunications provider. You can keep your same phone numbers, stay flexible, and deliver reliability with certification. So you can continue using your existing provider lines and minutes and pay for them outside of the Microsoft licensing. For the Microsoft calling plans, Microsoft will manage that for you as a service and also allow you to port your numbers from your existing provider into the Microsoft platform. And all of this is deployed in the cloud, which means that you're not having to worry about any administration or any ongoing management or renewal of hardware or maintenance for the service that you're procuring. So for the two different options within Microsoft 365 Business Voice, the first one includes a calling plan, which is your lines and minutes I've been referring to. So that enables you to do your dialing in and out with audio conferencing, to have your domestic toll-free and international calling credits with usage minutes, which are poolable between individuals, which essentially means the more licenses you purchase for this, those minutes on a per user basis get allocated across everybody in a centralized pool. So if somebody doesn't use all of their minutes, they're available for somebody else to use. The second option is for you to use with direct routing, which gives you the phone system functionality, but no calling plan, which allows you to bring your own. Hopefully that gives you a brief understanding of the Microsoft 365 Business Voice options. What we're now going to do is show you how this works within a real world environment within Microsoft Teams and how it brings all of this together. So I'll hand over to Hugh to jump in on this section.
Thank you, Mark. So hi, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen and we'll jump into a live demonstration of Teams. Now, this one's very much focused on Business Voice, but we always like to start the session off with an overview of what Teams is about. So anybody that's joining that perhaps hasn't started to use Teams fully, they can get a good picture of what else Teams is good for. So Teams, we have this chat section. So the chat basically allows me to send individual messages to people either inside my organization, or I can also message people outside of the organization. So it's quite an important thing to know. You don't actually need the phone license to call people internally. And you also don't need the phone license if you want to call other people on Microsoft Teams as well. So you can do that all with the basic built-in functionality. Now, the chat basically is a replacement for Skype for Business. And over the coming few months, Skype for Business is being completely transitioned away from, and we end up with Microsoft Teams. So the first thing, I can send a chat to an individual. As I mentioned, they could be an internal person or they could be another person that's currently on Teams. I can send them a message here, so I can say hello, and I've then got the thread and the conversations that are going on. So we run other webinars where we've gone into this in a lot more detail. In the top right-hand corner, I can click on video call, or I can do an audio call, and I can also do a screen share. So the chat functionality is very handy for communicating with people that are already using Microsoft Teams. The second piece then is actual Teams. So again, we did the previous webinar where we have a recording available, where we jumped into this in a lot more detail, and we went through some recommendations on how you can use Teams to build an effective remote team. As a brief overview of the functionality of Teams here, Teams, you can see all the teams I'm a member of appear down the left-hand side, and we see Teams working really well across organizations for three main areas. We can have one for departmental areas, so that's what we covered off in our last session, basically replacing internal emails and replacing files. We can also have a project one, which can be used for project information and cross departments. And we can also create a company-wide one, which can be used to provide social engagement across the organization and posting news and general announcements. Very briefly, the idea of Teams is every team that you're a member of will appear here. We then have the conversations. So this is a modern communication tool. The idea of it is to replace internal emails. So lots of organizations are using this in the current climate. They're using it to send emails and work in a more effective way. We can also migrate files into it, and we can move away from things like Dropbox and OneDrive and away from perhaps if you're using SharePoint or file servers. So that's kind of a very quick snapshot of the functionality of Microsoft Teams. The next tab here is the calendar. So this basically is a direct replacement for your Outlook calendar. It's the same. So when you come into the calendar here, it's showing the same calendar that you'll see in Outlook. One of the features that we get when we have Business Voice, we are able to set up a new Teams meeting. And when I click the new Teams meeting, you'll see in the invitation, I get an extra feature. So I've got the ability here to have an audio conferencing number. So this means when you have Business Voice, we can invite anybody in the world to this. And if they don't have a computer or they don't have Microsoft Teams or a web browser, they can dial into the team and the meeting by using these details here. So this is a very handy piece of functionality that means that anybody can join a meeting no matter where they are or what device they're using. This can also be purchased separately. So as I mentioned, it's included in Business Voice, but you can also purchase this as a separate license as well. So if you do move to Business Voice and you're paying for the audio conferencing license, you won't need to going forward because you'll get it included. So the audio conferencing, very good just to pull in people and they can then dial into the meetings. We then have the calls functionality. So this is the functionality that Business Voice provides. So you'll see here down the left-hand side, I've now got my number. So within here, I have the ability to basically, if anybody was to call this number, I would receive a pop-up in the bottom right-hand corner with a notification to say whoever's calling me at that time. I can also send a call. So I can type in the numbers here and then that will send a voice call. So this Business Voice effectively allows us to send and receive calls either to a local number, a mobile number, or to an international number if you have the relevant plan. In this center section here, you can see I've got various favorites and contacts. So we can use this to basically build a contacts list to make it easy to call. Now, something I won't be able to show very effectively on this demo is that this all works on a mobile phone as well. So exactly the same calling, I'm able to send and receive calls from my mobile phone just as I can on here. So if I was to receive a call, both my PC and my mobile phone would ring at the same time. So no matter what device you are on, wherever you are in the world, you'll easily be able to send and receive calls to your direct dial number. We get some cool features that people are able to utilize here. So in the top right hand corner, if I click on settings, I've got a call section here. And this basically allows me to set different kind of routings up for my calls. So you can see at the moment, if I don't answer my phone, it then forwards to a landline number. So you can set up your own rule on a per user basis to say, if I don't answer the phone after 20 seconds, either call a different number, redirect to someone internally, or do nothing. So you can really control how that is, or you can send it to a voicemail. We've got the ability to have a simultaneous ring. So this is handy when we're allowed outside again. It means I can basically ring my mobile phone at the same time as Teams. So if I know I'm in an area where I don't have very good bandwidth, I'm not able to get an internet connection, I can set this to ring my mobile phone at the same time. And when I receive that call on my mobile phone, I'll be able to see all of the caller ID, and it works very well. I can also just set up a forward my calls. So this is handy if you're on holiday. You obviously don't want people ringing you. So you can set this up to basically forward your calls to a voicemail or redirect. So those options allow us to easily decide how your calls are going to be routed when you do get them. Further down in the configure voicemail section, we can configure a greeting. So if you wanted to record your own voicemail message, you can do that here. But one of the features that I really like is at the bottom here, we've got this one called out of office greeting. So what you can actually do with Teams and Outlook is you can configure your out of office message. So every time you're out of the office, you might put a message to say, I'm on holiday or on annual leave or I'm in client meetings. And this will actually read back and play the voicemail from your out of office agent. So it's a very easy way of having a dynamically changing out of office greeting where you don't have to keep updating your voicemail with a custom greeting. It will just read your out of office to the people that are calling. And that works for your internal out of office and your external out of office. And finally, if you want, you can just type in greeting here as well. And the voice does sound pretty good. So it does sound human. So I would recommend definitely looking at the out of office greeting option. There's a few other options which are mainly to do with blocking calls. So you have the ability to block calls and do that kind of thing. But effectively, that is how the user will experience this system. They have the ability to send and receive calls. They can be a member of a call queue, which I'll jump into in a minute, which means that they could be in a group of several people that will receive a call. And obviously we have the forwarding settings in the top right hand corner, which means you can really customize your calling experience. I'm now going to jump into the admin portal. So this is where a lot of the settings are configured for the actual phone system. So when I click voice here, I've got the first section here for phone numbers. So what you can actually do for free is you can add a number from pretty much any city or a lot of countries. So if you wanted to have a United States number as an example, you can set that up. But we can also go into the city and we can pick from a list of cities where you'd want the number to be. Now, one of the downsides is not every city is available in here. This is kind of the major cities at the moment. And towns are not necessarily in there as well. So you might find you're not able to pick your exact location, but you can certainly pick somewhere that's a bit closer. So the phone numbers are completely free. We can have a user number, which we can assign to users, and we can have a service number, which is assigned to a call queue or an auto attendant. So they're not assigned to a user specifically. They're used for kind of like the mainline phone number, that kind of thing. We're able to port numbers. So you can see here, if you do want to port your numbers from an existing provider, Microsoft will guide you through those steps and basically help you with that process. But this is quite a cumbersome process. There's quite a few steps, and some of our clients have chosen not to migrate their numbers, but it certainly is possible if you'd like to do that. So that's kind of the phone numbers. We also then have call queues. So a call queue basically is a group of people. So we can set up a call queue and we can assign a group to that. So we've got one here called Skype agents. But effectively what will happen is if anybody rings this number, it will then phone all of the people in that group. So that can be an Office 365 group or a security group. And when they ring the number, that will then call all of the people that are in the group. On a call queue, we can set up a greeting. So if it was a sales queue, it might say, welcome to the sales team, someone will be in touch shortly. We can set custom on hold music if you wanted to play a message such as, thank you for holding, we'll be in touch soon. We can set up the groups, which I've talked about. And we can also set up the kind of routing method. So an attendant routing basically calls everybody at the same time. A serial routing will ring agents one by one in the order that you decide. And a round robin will try and distribute the calls equally across all the call agents. So we've got some quite cool functionality we can do around that. We can also decide what happens if there's more than 50 calls in a queue. So we can have a max of 200. But if we do get too many, we can then redirect it to a different call queue, or we could redirect it to a voicemail service. And we can also have a call timeout. So if someone's waiting for a maximum of 45 minutes, we could also redirect this call to a voicemail or to a different group of users. So the call queues, think of those as groups of people that you need to call. So typically sales, reception, IT support, that kind of thing. We also then have auto attendants. So these auto attendants basically is the mainline number. So if someone was to call this mainline number here, we can then decide on what the call flow would be. So the call flow basically allows me to say play menu options. And within here, we can then say, please press 1 for sales, please press 2 for support, and you can then define the routing of your call and how you want that to go. So this is very customizable. It's very, very easy and user-friendly. And as we go through this, we can also, if we go into the next section, we can define sort of what happens out of hours. And let me just go back a second. So within here, when we go to the next section, we can define what happens in working hours. So if you only operated from 8 till 6, you can define that and you can have different routing out of hours. So perhaps if you provide a 24/7 service, you might redirect the call to a different call queue. So it's very customizable. And we can also even set up holidays. So obviously if you're on bank holidays or anything like that, we can set those up as well so that when there is a call on a bank holiday, it routes somewhere else or takes them to a voicemail. So the auto attendants will link to the call queues. So effectively, when we're building the auto attendant, we would push 1 for sales, and that would then link to the sales call queue. And that's how we can build the rules, and we can set up a really comprehensive system from there. We've got lots of other settings. I'm not going to go into all of them, but we can define caller IDs. So if you didn't want the direct dial of a user to show up when they were calling it out, we can set the caller ID to be masked, or we can set it to show only the mainline number. And that's kind of the voice settings. The final part of this really is the usage reports. Now, Mark said about the warts and all earlier on. The reporting in the current business voice is quite weak. So if you do have very comprehensive reporting requirements, you'll see what I'm able to pull back from here is a date range from the last 28 days. And it allows me to see who's been sending and receiving calls, the duration of those calls, and whether they were domestic or international. One of the downsides of this is we can't currently pull information such as how long was a user waiting before the call was answered, how many calls has an agent made in a day, pretty much like contact center functionality. There is some APIs that are coming over the next couple of months, so we anticipate that this will improve the reporting. But as it stands now, for most companies who only need to see the calls sent and received, it's perfect. But if you have requirements outside of that, then as Mark mentioned, you would look at the other option where you can bring in a third party for the call routing. And the final one we can do within the reports is just see the minutes. So with the minutes, every user would get a certain amount of minutes added to it. And the way the system works is it just pools all of those minutes together. And you can then, so if you had 10 users, all of those minutes are pooled into one pool rather than if user A does 400 minutes and they run out. It doesn't work that way. All of the business voice licenses pool into one collective pool of minutes that they can use them. And that kind of is the back end and the functionality. One thing to mention is there is a business voice trial available. So if you guys were interested in getting this platform going, the business voice trial, which Mark can help with, can be a very good way of kickstarting and testing this functionality before moving on. So I'll hand over back to Mark now, who will talk through a bit more of the functionality of Teams.
Great, thank you. So obviously from that demo, what we're hoping that you can see from it is that it's a fairly straightforward way of getting your phone system up and running should you have an immediate requirement to replace your current telephony system, or even to add additional functionality on top of what you've already got within your telephony system as it stands. So a lot of this is web driven. It's all managed underlyingly by Microsoft themselves. So in order to kind of get this up and running, it is a very quick process. And as Hugh mentioned, there are trials available for Business Voice for you to see what this feels and looks like. So there'd be no harm in setting that up. So if you need any help with that, then just please let us know. So what does this cost? In order to deliver what we've been talking about this morning, the two different license types that we mentioned around Microsoft 365 Business Voice are as follows. The first one includes your lines and minutes. So that's the minutes that I mentioned earlier today. That is £12 per user per month. That gives you your phone system, your audio conferencing, your domestic calling, and international calling available as an add-on. Should you already have a lines and minutes package that would be compatible with Teams, so this is where you choose your direct routing option. That drops the the price quite significantly, but obviously you need to weigh that up with whatever you're currently paying for your existing lines and minutes with your current service provider. And that is a Microsoft 365 Business Voice without calling plan option. And all of those are per user per month. Now, with this type of system, it isn't an all or nothing option either. So you could be quite selective over how you want to license your users. So for example, as Hugh showed earlier within the demonstration of Teams and the calls, if you only want to make Teams to Teams calls, that doesn't require a telephone system license. That is enabled out of the box as part of Teams. If you need to be able to make and receive outbound and inbound calls, then that's where you would need to add this on. So if you've got members of a particular team in your organization that doesn't need inbound or outbound call functionality, but they would like to collaborate with other members of the team, they may not need a business voice license at all. So it could be quite selective over how you deliver the licensing. So this slide is just ratification of kind of the previous one and gives you something to take away post the events once we send this out, so you can see exactly what you are getting for your money. And the international calling add-on price is £9 per user per month. So the qualifying prerequisites for this license type is that if you're on Office 365 Business Essentials, Business Premium, or Microsoft 365 for Business. So we've talked a few times now about kind of the unified comms piece, and this is where the phone system element within Microsoft comes into its own compared to a lot of other systems on the marketplace at the moment. So the artificial intelligence is built into Teams above and beyond your traditional calling. And what I mean by that is you have so much more capability within Microsoft Teams than you would over a traditional handset that would be sat on your desk for you to make and receive calls. So with this, you can have inline message translation. So if you are working globally or with third parties that their native language isn't English, you have the capability of doing translation immediately within this platform. That also takes into consideration not just necessarily inline message translation, but that also allows you to deliver translation on the fly on an audio call as well, or a video call. So you can enable transcription within that meeting, which enables it to translate live for certain languages. You also have the option of blurring backgrounds, as well as doing those live captions that I mentioned earlier, something that a traditional telephony system wouldn't be able to do. It's also compatible across all of your device types. There are certain Teams devices that are certified for Teams, but this gives you a breadth of devices that you can now work on, as opposed to a traditional, as I mentioned before, handset that you may be anchored to your desk. We've got clients that are using Microsoft Teams for their telephony in its entirety, which enables them to be able to move desks every 3 months without fail. That's just something they do as an organization, and utilizing Teams to deliver this means that they don't have a physical handset on their desk, which makes the moving of that coordination far simpler than what it would be if you had to coordinate the moving of handsets across the desks as well. But as you'll see, this works across all those devices listed on here and gives you a consistent approach across all devices. To incorporate meetings into this as well is just an added benefit of the Teams platform in conjunction with calling and telephony. So you have a consistent experience anyway across any desk, whether you're working from home, in the office, on your mobile, if you're out and about, hopefully in the future. But it also gives you an intelligent and inclusive way of collaborating, not just internally, but also externally with your partners or customers. And all of this is underpinned by a single login that you will have within your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 environment, which means that it's a fairly simple way of accessing all of the services available for your end users. So if we talk about a little bit more about the consistent experiences that we get from this, as Hugh showed within Teams, it's bringing your calendar functionality from Outlook into Microsoft Teams. That gives you a central dashboard as that Microsoft Teams platform to be able to join, host meetings, schedule them, work across any device that you need to. But there's also free plugins for web browsers as well. So should you be on a separate device that doesn't have Teams in it, or you have clients that need to dial in, there's a browser that just has the ability to have a plugin for you to connect into those. And to top this off, what you'll also get as part of all of this is that you'll have the ability to schedule live meetings as well, which can broadcast up to 10,000 attendees. Similar to what we're doing today, that allows you to record the meetings, have live transcripts available. You can also then have a Q&A session, but it's a very good way of getting the information out across various organizations. And on top of this, you also have the room system functionality, which provides one-touch meeting join capabilities to conference rooms. That essentially means that you don't have to worry about various different devices in meeting rooms, various cables. You can go in, touch the button on the device, and it will auto join that meeting for you. So it makes things a lot simpler. In addition to what we've been talking about, you'll get the ability to share desktop and applications, very similar to what we're doing here now by sharing an application in PowerPoint and presenting that. That brings everything to life so that everyone can see what's going on. The meeting lifecycle, so if you were to record the meeting content, this can auto publicize it to Microsoft Stream, and it will allow users to play that back at their convenience, which enables further collaboration and unified comms across the piece. Additionally, you'll have the options to use Microsoft Whiteboard, which again encourages collaboration should you have a touchscreen device to be able to annotate on top of documents or create diagrams on the fly. But most importantly, we've probably all been there, given that we're now working from home and have some sort of childcare dilemmas or people walking in past you or into your room. You have the option to blur your background, with custom backgrounds being delivered shortly as well. So whilst we've been talking about the benefits of Teams and the unified comms and business voice options, we do understand that there are various different deployment methods, or people coming from Skype for Business, for example, in its current iteration. So what we've got within the presentation here is various options of deploying Microsoft Teams or the current situation you may find yourself in. So SBC is a session border controller, and SFB is Skype for Business. What we've been talking about in the main today is number 4 on this diagram and number 6. So number 4 is Teams and Microsoft calling plan. That means there's no reliance of you having a session border controller whatsoever. It enables pure cloud delivery of this solution. Number 6 is where you take your phone system license from Microsoft, but then use your own lines and minutes in order to be able to deliver the telephony function of it, or the calling capability. That requires a session border control. But within this, there's the diagram itself. There are a lot of other deployment methods that you can consider in order to achieve the same deliverable if you are on a legacy Skype for Business platform. And what we'll typically see in a lot of environments that have Skype for Business on-prem in an enterprise scenario is actually the third diagram, where they will enable Teams direct routing and Skype for Business direct routing as well in a hybrid environment. Again, what we would advocate for anybody that has enterprise requirements or advanced requirements of their telephony systems would be to reach out to us post this event so that we can understand what that is and how we can help. So within Skype for Business and Teams, so if you're on a current incarnation of Skype for Business within the cloud, there are various different ways of enabling coexistence between Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams before Skype for Business gets turned off, or if you have it on-prem. These coexistent methods are essentially ways of utilizing both systems without completely killing each other. Now, Skype for Business, if you're already using that, will do all of those items that you've got down the left-hand side in blue. By enabling different types of coexistent models, which are listed on the right-hand side in the modes, you will start to increase the utilization of Teams in order for you to eventually aim to have a full Teams deployment. So you will gradually move the communication and services and collaboration features from Skype for Business into Microsoft Teams before Skype for Business becomes non-existent in the online variant. Skype for Business on-premise is still very much part of the short-term roadmap for Microsoft, but I can imagine that will eventually come to an end and everything will be moving to Teams. So what we would like to discuss for a short while here is remote workshops. So we appreciate what we've given you today is hopefully a brief overview of Microsoft 365 Voice and how some of these models can be deployed within your organization. What we are aiming to deliver as part of this, to understand things better and as part of the whole Microsoft ecosystem, are remote workshops. So we appreciate this isn't something that we can deliver on site, given the current scenario. What we are doing now is providing these remote workshops on various different areas. Some of these are on Teams adoption, others are on security. And what we're aiming to do with this is to give you the options of being able to either engage with a partner such as ourselves to help deliver some of these adoptions, post the workshops, or even projects to deliver Microsoft 365 services, or even if it's a one-off workshop to help you get started in the right way on delivering something like Business Voice that we've talked about today. These workshops are delivered purely remotely using Microsoft Teams, where we enable video and collaboration so that we can have a true dialogue around these solutions. So if you are interested in any of these, please go to circleit.co.uk/feedback-form and let us know of any requirements. If not, just drop me an email, post this, or connect with me on LinkedIn. It's mark.alford@circleit.co.uk. So the further webinars in this series are going to be conducted every Tuesday at 10 a.m. going forward. For those of you that won't be able to attend any of these, they will be recorded and will pop on our YouTube channel so that you can play them back at your own convenience. So the next one is around security. So given the fact that people are very likely working on their personal devices at home now, should they not have a corporate device, there are generally a lot of concerns over how the organization secures the data on those devices. And Microsoft 365 has security solutions built in to address these types of scenarios. So we'll be going through various topics around the security platform that Microsoft have available within this practice, and we'll be giving you some real-world examples of how this will protect your data. So we'll now move on to the Q&As, which looks like there's some already been published. So one from Phil. Can a user in MS Teams be a virtual endpoint so that different people can log into this account instead of implementing a group? That's something you can
you can set up a Microsoft team, and then you can invite multiple members into a Meet Now functionality. So The way, if you wanted to pull people in, would be to just create a team, add all the people that you'd want in there, and then you can just drag the people into that meeting and do it on an ad hoc basis. I don't think it would be feasible to create a dedicated account for the virtual teams. I think that would be quite a messy solution to try and work through.
Yeah, so the administration of that going forward would be quite problematic. Message from Carl: if my organization needs less than 300 seats but use a Microsoft 365 Enterprise license E3 or E5, are we precluded from business voice as a result of not having business licenses? Or would E3 or E5 license qualify as part of the prerequisites? So my understanding on that is that you would be precluded from utilizing the Microsoft 365 business voice.
Yes, that's correct.
You being on enterprise licensing.
You need to have a business license to do it, don't you? So you wouldn't be able to do that. You'd have to go down the phone system route. So you can get a phone system. If you have an E5 license, you'll already have the phone system added. So you would just simply need to add a call plan onto that. If you have an E3 license, you'd need to upgrade to a phone system add-on, which is around £6 a user a month, and then add a separate call plan for domestic or international on top of that.
We have another question from Peter. How do you pull a group across from Outlook into a team?
It depends how the group is set up, but you can convert an Office 365 group into a Microsoft team. So when you're in creating a team, you have the option for an existing team or group, and then you can convert that within the if it's, you might want to get in touch separately, and we could have a conversation if it's a different type of group, and we can talk through the options around that.
Okay, I don't think there's any further questions on this, so I hope that today's content has been of relevance and has been useful for everyone. We'd like to thank everybody for their participation today and attendance, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thank you very much all.